Welcome back to talkSPORT Driving, the home of all things motorsport on YouTube for talkSPORT. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. And in today's video, I am joined by Emily Prazer, who's the Chief Commercial Officer at Formula One and President of the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Emily, thanks so much for joining me today. We're less than a month away now from the first Grand Prix of the season, and it's going to be a special year for F1 this year, with it being its 75th anniversary. So how much are you looking forward to this year?
Good. Well, firstly, good morning, Bradley, and thank you for having me today. Obviously very excited for the year. Kicking off tonight at the O2 Arena, which is going to be super exciting. Big year for the sport, obviously 75th anniversary, lots of change happening with the new regulations going into 2026. So we're super excited. Obviously, the racing was really competitive at the back end of last season. So looking forward to seeing what happens at the start of this season.
And it's been an off-season full of talking points of various drivers moving, and a lot of excitement to see what happens this year and whether the likes of Lando and Lewis and the likes of Charles Leclerc can really take the fight to Max Verstappen this year. So what can we expect from F1 in 2025?
Oh, well, I think we touched on very, very competitive racing. Obviously, the back end of the season was absolutely epic. I don't think any of us were too sure who was going to come out on top at the end. So I think, the battle will commence. Obviously, seeing Lewis in Ferrari overalls is going to be really exciting. And then obviously seeing if Lando can actually get it done. So we're lots of anticipation, very excited on the racing side and very excited on the activation and commercial side too.
And is there a particular thing or particular race that you're really looking forward to this year?
Well, I'm biased by saying Las Vegas at all times, obviously. But generally speaking, each of our 24 Grand Prix offer something very different for each of our clientele of that particular market. So I always, again, sorry to keep bringing it up, but seeing Lewis in Ferrari overalls in Monza, I think will be spine tingling.
And that move for Lewis to Ferrari, what are you noticing in terms of that and what it will do for the sport, seeing Lewis race for such an iconic brand and an iconic sort of team?
I think just, the social media presence that's happened since Ferrari, since Lewis went to Ferrari has been significant. I think the picture of Lewis in his very smart suit was one of the most viewed picture on our social media platforms of all time. So I think we're seeing the ripple effect of the perfect couple there.
And if he could win in Monza, what do you think that would do for Formula One?
I think it would just be so iconic. So obviously we can't be biased. We are hoping that any Ferrari driver wins in Monza, just from a emotional standpoint. Obviously Charles won there last year and it was epic. So very excited to see what happens.
And we touched on the start, but this is F1's 75th anniversary this year. And I know there's lots of celebrations planned potentially throughout this year to mark that. So for our listeners who are going to be watching on this season, what can we expect? What can we expect in terms of some of the celebrations that we might get to see this year?
Well, we started kicking off the 75th anniversary with a bit of a rebrand for Formula One. So you'll see our kind of marketing efforts are slightly different to usual. You'll see a lot of F1 75, a lot of relentless evolution, as we're calling it, from the history of the sport all the way through to what it looks like for the future. So we're excited to launch that in a couple of weeks in Australia. We talked about this evening at the O2, which is a first for us, all 10 teams revealing their car liveries together. Lots of fun entertainment, a spectacular production to kick off the season. And then we'll have snippets of kind of 75th anniversary activations all year. And then June's a really big month for us because we'll be launching the movie with Brad Pitt, which we're very, very highly anticipating seeing how that all turns out. So I think you'll find that there'll be multiple touch points through the year around looking back and appreciating what the sport's all about and moving forward into the likes of the movie and what have you.
And you joined Formula One back in 2017. Just how much has the sport changed since you first joined?
I was fortunate to join kind of just after Liberty bought F1, and obviously I'm very grateful for the opportunity to kind of be part of that journey and story. It's changed massively, but I think it's, the likes of Drive to Survive helping us open up this new audience has been significant. And now it's about how do we, continue to keep our hardcore fans really engaged. But how do we also make sure that we're appealing to this new audience that we've acquired through the likes of Drive to Survive and other efforts to broaden the fan base somewhat. So, it's been an unbelievable journey. I think obviously we're just scratching the surface. I think we'd be remiss to say that we're there. We've still got lots to do, but we're excited for the direction the business is going.
You mentioned the impact of Drive to Survive there. With the help of that, has F1 ever been so popular as it is right now, with the amount of interest and the amount of eyes that are on it, and the new audience that you are attracting?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's opening up a completely different community for us. Like I said, we're very cognizant of making sure we maintain interest from our hardcore fans through the racing product, which to our earlier conversation, I think has been super exciting, and will continue to be. And then obviously, as we continue to engage with this new fan base and what have you, it's, doing deals with the likes of Lego, whereby you get to see Formula One cars in toy stores. We've never been there before, and having all 10 teams get engaged with that. I actually got this sent to me this morning, which is our new Hot Wheels product, which is awesome. And that will be coming out in store soon. So really trying to diversify from just kind of B2B business conversations into real consumer engagement, which again, I think we're doing quite well. And that's off the back of the audience, like I say, that we acquired through Drive to Survive and making the sport so much more accessible for people to understand.
And you obviously are involved in the Las Vegas Grand Prix as the president as well. Before we touch on the Grand Prix itself, that Netflix series, what has it done for the overall sports popularity over in the States as well?
Yeah, I mean, it opened up a completely different conversation in the States. Obviously, we aspire to be one of the leading sporting organizations in the US. And I think obviously having 3 races there has been really significant. Coupled with Drive to Survive, obviously Austin was our first Grand Prix in the US, and that really set the foundation. Then adding Miami and adding Vegas on top of that, we've got 3 really complementary races, all at different stages of the F1 calendar. Obviously, you start the year in Miami and you end in Vegas with Austin in between. So engaging with that audience has been really interesting. It's very different to what we were used to doing. But obviously, and like we've said, Drive to Survive gave us a lot more understanding of what that audience wanted to see. And so we continue to open up the social media side of it. And then obviously the Las Vegas Grand Prix was ultimately like the epiphany of this is the audience we're trying to focus on, and keep engaged and show up at the race. Again, if you look at the racetrack in Austin, it's for a hardcore motorsport fan with a really traditional circuit and unbelievable racing. The biggest surprise of Las Vegas was actually the amazing circuit. We were very uncertain going into the race whether the actual racing product was going to be exciting. And it's like, I've said this before, it's basically a sprint race, which is amazing. That the speed of which those cars go down Las Vegas Boulevard is eye-watering and obviously looks spectacular on TV.
And the 2024 Las Vegas Grand Prix was full of drama. This year, we're going to see a new starting time for it. So I wondered if you could explain to our listeners and our viewers a little bit more behind why the race will be starting a little bit earlier this year.
Yeah, we moved the start time to 8 p.m. For qualifying in the race. I think it was just learnings from the years before. Obviously, very grateful that we have the ability to be nimble and make such changes. But I think it was more to make sure that the fans remain safe, that the audience in the US could actually watch it. Obviously, the 10 p.m. start time was okay for the West Coast, but wasn't engaging enough on the East Coast. So just wanted to make those adjustments whilst we continue to learn and make sure that we're being, as filling as possible from a content standpoint.
And what feedback have you been getting from the teams and the drivers about the Vegas Grand Prix? Because it seems like they love going there as well.
Yeah, the teams and the drivers have been nothing but supportive. Obviously, they're very aware that it's the first time as Formula One we've promoted our own Grand Prix, which means they're as involved as we are in getting and making sure that the success of this race is as significant as possible for the broader sport. Vegas make us very, very welcome, obviously, and we have unbelievable partnerships there with the LVCVA, with the casinos, and with the local community. So I would say we've been embraced. Obviously, the drivers and the teams help us make sure that we're hitting all of the right tone for the destination. And we keep pushing the boundaries as it relates to what the event and what the spectacle should be there. Obviously, like I said before, it's very different to a more traditional Grand Prix, but I think it helps us have its own identity. It's very, very Las Vegas. If anyone's been there, it really is a show, and the drivers are the show, and they give us the access we need to make sure that we put them on the right platform.
And there are some Grand Prix that people really look for when they first look at the calendar for the new year. The likes of Monza, the likes of Spa, the likes of Monaco, Silverstone. It is the hope that Vegas could become one of those iconic Grand Prix one day in the future.
Yeah, again, like I said, the racing in Vegas is absolutely amazing, and I think that's something that really took ourselves and the Formula One crowd by surprise. So there's no reason it can't become that. I think races take a while to become established on the F1 calendar, but it's very well documented how committed we are to Vegas as a destination. We see it as the home of Formula One in North America. We're investing significantly in the year-round operation there with some cool stuff that will be launched at the end of March around karting and F1 exhibition, an immersive experience, our first permanent F1 store and what have you. So it really is a destination in its own right for Formula One, and we'll continue to penetrate that as much as we can.
And we were talking about the new audience that F1 is attracting right now. So in the future, are there any other new venues or new countries that we might see potentially be added to the calendar going forward, or there are plans to potentially be added to?
I mean, I think that we're feeling quite confident at the 24 Grand Prix. Obviously, any more than that is a strain for the drivers and the operating staff. So I can't see us adding venues, more like creating balance. Asia is also a key market for us as we continue to grow our fandom. So definitely things in the pipeline, but haven't got, updates and news on that right now. But it's super important to us to continue making sure that we penetrate the audience in these different markets. The US and Asia have always been super important to F1. We're also cognizant of, we need to get things right. And so we'll continue to tweak the Vegas race and make sure that it's as popular as possible before we add anything else.
And I've got to ask you about Max Verstappen. Going into another season as the reigning champion. He's done so much for the sport. What would his legacy be, do you think, going forward?
I think obviously he's a hardcore racing fan driver at his core, and I think he's been wonderful for our fans to, create a new icon. Obviously, Lewis had his moment at Mercedes, Schumacher had his moment in Ferrari, and I think Max obviously stands out as how many more championships is he going to win? How are Red Bull going to continue to push the boundaries? How are other teams going to up their game to compete? But all eyes are on the start of the season. It's always very unpredictable, as we talked about. Who would have thought it would have been as close as it was at the back end of last year? So I think with Max, it's more making sure that he's got the best possible car, which is up to Red Bull, and we'll just continue to make sure that we give him the platform to race and show the world what he can do.
And we saw the other teams starting to catch Red Bull and Max up last season. And we saw the start of a little bit of a rivalry developing between him and Lando Norris. What would you think that could do for the sport? The fact that we've got lots of young talents like Lando and like Oscar Piastri and George Russell now really starting to come to the fore and starting to challenge the likes of Max and Lewis more regularly.
Yeah, I mean, competition's amazing for any sport. Obviously, no one wants runaway leaders, because then we're trying to figure out ways to make the racing engaging and content engaging. So it just comes back to the fact that that's where we are at the moment. Obviously, there's a ton of rookies coming into the sport this year as well, and we're quite excited to see how Kimi does at Mercedes and Jack does at Renault, or Alpine, sorry. So from our perspective, it's actually helping to build the profiles of each of these drivers, because obviously Max is so well known. Lando has built his profile over time. George is iconic. And our job is more to make sure that all of the fans understand who these new characters in our sport are. And again, that comes back to how Drive to Survive is super important, what we're trying to do tonight at the O2, where we introduce the drivers for the first time. And, we like to magnify some of the rivalries, because that's what makes it really engaging. So we hope that they continue to battle it out. We hope that Max has some competition this year. And it will be really interesting to see the outcome in Abu Dhabi at the end of the season.
And lastly then, what's your message to our audience then about what to look forward to in 2025 in the world of F1?
I think I've touched on a lot of it. Competitive racing, lots of fun activations around the 75th anniversary, and obviously, and I'll plug it again, but our favourite race in Las Vegas, just because it's our baby. So look out for some fun changes there, and us continuing to push some boundaries on the marketing side.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for your time, Emily. Really appreciate you joining us this morning. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the talkSPORT Driving YouTube page and keep your eyes peeled for a load of exclusive content from the F1 75 launch.